Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Truckers Podcast, FYI. I'm your host, Doug from Ontario, Canada. It is 8:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Ontario, Canada. Welcome, everybody, to the show. Well, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Um, I know it's only Tuesday, but I hope you had a good weekend. And of course, yesterday being the first day of the week, Monday. Not everybody likes Monday. I'm probably one of them that don't like Mondays. But tomorrow is the middle of the week. Tomorrow is Wednesday. So we're just about there. So, um, yeah, it's been hectic, for me. Um, when, first of all, life isn't easy. It wasn't meant to be easy. Life throws a lot of curveballs at us. And when we're not hitting those curveballs, we kind of, we feel stress and we feel anxiety. And I'm one of those, like everybody else, you know, feeling stress and feeling anxiety and working through it and, trying to, get better. Um, so I kind of, I'll go to my quiet place, and figure out, what's causing the stress and what's causing the anxiety, and I don't try to figure them both out at the same time or try to solve both at the same time because it's just impossible to do that. You have to deal with the stress and then you have to deal with the anxiety or vice versa, however you want to work it out, with yourself. So of course, I miss, doing some shows and that, but like I say, life just throws us a bunch of curveballs sometimes, and it's hard to hit them, and things get turned upside down, and we try to figure it out. But here I am, and back out here, and gonna make a go of it, for sure. This show here tonight too. It might be turned into part one, and it might turn into part two, but we'll see how it goes and how long it takes to get through some of this stuff and everything else like that. So I was just looking in my favorite search here. Um, what is it that I want? It is the whoops, the charter. I think this is the one I want here. Is the guide to it, to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Is going to bring it up because there's just so many. Part one. I think it's going to be in part two here. So what's in part two here? guarantee of rights and freedoms, fundamental freedoms, official languages, enforcement general, like that. Is that the one? I don't know if this is the one. Okay, so fundamental freedom, section 2, everyone has the following fundamental freedoms: freedom of conscience in religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communications. So, under Section 2 of the Charter, Canadians are free to follow, of course, their religion of their choice. In addition, they are guaranteed freedom of thought. Right? I can think whatever I want and ideas. We can have ideas about many different things. You can think of all these ideas through your thoughts. Right? Freedom of expression, freedom of speech are one and the same. And you have to be very careful on how and what you maybe want to express on something, giving your thoughts aloud. Freedom of speech. We know hate speech is against the law. It's against the law. Right? And even those, so the freedoms are set out in the Charter to ensure that Canadians are free to create and express their ideas, gather to discuss them, and communicate them widely to other people. And these activities are basic forms of individual liberty. They are also important to the success of a democratic society like Canada. In a democracy, people, must be free to discuss matters of public policy, criticize governments, and their own solutions on social problems. Even though these freedoms are very important, governments can sometimes limit them or put other things into law. So basically against hate propaganda, and or child pornography, because they prevent harm to individuals in groups. So these are my thoughts. These are going to be how you doing? I hope you're so far. I know it's only Tuesday, so I hope your week is going pretty good. I know you see the title up there. Say this instead of that, and it's going to be explained. And so basically, I'm just kind of starting out the show with what it's with freedom of thought, freedom of expression. But there are limits, freedom of expression and freedom of speech. There's laws against hate speech. Freedom of expression, well, I mean, as long as that we are, are not, being racist. We can express our thoughts, right? So Now, the whole purpose of this show. Now, I'm what I do um, is that I get home from work, I get all cleaned up, I have my dinner and all that stuff, and then I want to relax. So I come upstairs, I put my headphones on, and I go on YouTube and peruse through, what's going on in YouTube and stuff like that, and I'll listen to people who do music videos, like so they talk about a certain song or a certain group, and they play their music and they comment on the music, the singer, and all that stuff. And of course, other things come up there, something like that. So maybe I feel like a laugh, and just for laugh gags, there might be a little short video on that, and it's pretty funny. It makes me feel better to laugh. you know. So I came across uh, this one video. And I've never heard of this person before. Um, and as you may have, I don't know. He is really he's world renowned. He is a public speaker. This person is also a clinical psychologist, um, and he also was a professor at the University of Toronto here in Ontario, Canada. And I started watching this video because it just kind of just caught my eye, and it's like, okay, what is he talking about? You know, and what he was talking about was gender pronouns. I know what pronouns are, but then how they being used in gender, we know how, like that, like as for he, him, her, she. But what was happening here is that um, the LGBTQ plus two, I think that's how you say it, um, a small minority, I would think, um, now wants, and not just people in a sensitive position like a doctor or a teacher or a professor or police officer, somebody has, as we would say, authority in some sense. And it can also include you and me. So this, I'm thinking, is just a small minority of the LGBTQ plus two now have said that they would like to be recognized by their gender pronouns that is refers to their identity. So I thought to myself, well, I never heard of this before. And what are they, and what do they mean? So of course, I'm going to dig into this, and I'm going to go on my laptop and start searching, right? And dig into what are gender pronouns. I've never used gender pronouns before in my life. I was never taught gender pronouns before. I mean, I don't know. I grew up in the '60s. I played outside, because there was no such thing as laptops and computers, cell phones, internet, any of these electronic devices that we, you know, making life simpler, or it's not making life simpler. I don't know, but that's my everything I did growing up and stuff like that. It was outside. So I came across Springfield College. I don't know where they're out of. It maybe could be out of the United States. It could be anywhere, right? Now, so Springfield College, is a committed to valuing and validating the gender identity and expression. Now, before I go a little bit further, so what is happening with this individual, this clinical psychologist? He's a professor, right? And he also teaches, like so he's a public speaker too. And apparently, he feels that he is being compelled to use gender pronouns, and that's not all. Because he's a public speaker, he's been criticized by his peers, who when you go to school to become a doctor of whatever sorts, and you get a license to practice. So by basically saying he's simply refuses to use gender pronouns. He's not mad at the LGBTQ plus 2. He's mad at the Canadian government, because the Canadian government now has put these gender pronouns into law, but they put it in the criminal section of the law. Colleges, universities would like their professors whenever possible to use gender pronouns. Now, because this professor and public speaker, he said no, simply not, because he's not going to be compelled to use them. So now he'll be brought up before his peers and has been ordered to take a media sensitivity course, which he'll pay for out of his pocket. And he said no, he's not going to do that. he is at risk of losing his license to practice. Now, I don't believe it's just this one particular incident, right? So, I'll tell you right now, he has over 300 videos on YouTube. And that's Dr. Jordan Peterson. He has the Dr. Jordan Peterson podcast. Has done public speaking all over the world. Like anybody, he's been criticized, for some of the speeches that he makes. I mean, I look at it this way, because just because somebody is a public speaker and they have something to say, and we may or may not always agree to what they're talking about, right? We'll have our own definitions of what the subject may be about, or whatever like that, right? And that's because we'll think about whatever the topic they're talking about, and then thinking, okay, how much of this is true and how much of it true, or is it all true, or partially true, and you're sitting there and you're listening to this, and people in the back are upset and protesting out front because this person or whatever people have they have not said anything correct, or they're just being racist or something, because we don't want people like that. I'm not going to go talk to somebody if they're just going to talk about racism and being racist and all stuff like that. I'm not gonna sit there and listen to it. So anyways, he was on the Joe Rogan show, and I tried to find the one that they were talking about, and it's just so many different videos, I just couldn't find it. And people criticizing him and complaining to his peers. And so now, I mean, he has to go before this panel of people and explain himself, and they'll make a decision on whether or not he keeps his license to practice. So getting back to these gender pronouns and stuff like that, because I've never heard of them. I'm not, you think, well, you must be naive. How could you not have heard of gender pronouns? Well, I mean, like I just said, I grew up in the 60s. It was, it was Mr., it was Miss, it was Mrs., it was him, her, she. Gender identity refers to an individual's internal sense of gender, regardless of the sex assigned to them at birth or the sex designation on their legal documents, like your birth certificate. This keeps closing on me. So one that Springfield College seeks to create gender inclusive academic living and work environments by encouraging all members of the campus community to indicate the pronouns they use for themselves, if desired, in classes, residence halls, workplaces, or other settings, and by encouraging members of the campus community to respect these pronouns. Wherever Springfield College is. I don't know where it is, but same with the universities, and colleges, here in Ontario, Canada, for instance. So what is a pronoun? A pronoun is a word that is used instead of a noun or a noun phrase to refer to individuals. Pronouns can be in the first person singular, I, me, or plural, we, us. Second person singular, or plural, you, and the third person singular, she, her, he, him, they, them. So, Z, ZE, American Z, Canadian Z, so we're not going to say, so we're going to use the American phrase of the last letter of the alphabet as Z, so it's ZE, so Z would be he. And here is HIR, pronounced HERE, meaning here, her, or plural, they, them. So gender pronouns especially reference someone's gender. He, him, his, or she, her, hers. Is which I've always known. He, him, his, or she, her, hers. Non-gendered or non-binary pronouns are not gender specific and are most often used by people who identify outside of the gender binary. So the most common set of non-binary pronouns is they, them, their, used in the singular. Jada identifies as gender queer. They do not use themselves as either a woman or a man. Other non-binary pronouns include Z, like I said, the last letter after the alphabet, as you whatever you would say, Z, but in this way have to use the American language on the last letter of the alphabet, which is Z, so to be ZE, pronounced Z, ZEE, in place of she, he, and here, HIR, pronounced here, in place of his, him, her. Jada runs here own business, but Z is more well known as an author. The terms it or he, she are slurs used. So he or she are slurs used against transgender and gender nonconforming individuals and should not be used. Now, I've also looked at at an article too, is that not everybody in the LGBTQ uses the gender pronouns. And a lot, if not most of them, still use he, she, him, her. I guess some would take offense, and if you're using he or she, they would take offense, that you're just using slurs against transgender and gender nonconforming individuals. I take it. Other approaches to pronouns may include going simply by one's name. So let's just cut to the chase. What is your name? You were born with a name. What is it? Not having a preference or wanting to avoid pronouns altogether. Well, I never, or wanting to avoid pronouns altogether, gender pronouns, because I've never ever heard of them. So here's a pronoun table. So subjective, she. Objective, her. Possessive, hers. Reflexive, herself. She is studying. I've studied with her. The book is hers. Subjective, he. Objective, him. Possessive, his. Reflexive, himself. He is studying. I studied with him. The book is his. Subjective, they. Objective, them. Possessive, theirs. Reflexive, themself. They are studying. I studied with them. The book is theirs. Subjective, name. Objective, name. Possessive, names. Reflexes, name self. Alex is studying. I studied with Alex. The book is Alex's. So, subjective. Z, spelled how I say it in Canadian, Z-E-E or Z-E-E American. So, it would be actually spelled, sound like, it's how it sounds, right? So it would be here. Here, H-I-R-S. It would be Zier, Z or Z-I-R-S. Zier self, here self. There is studying, and I studied with Zier. The book is Zier's. Now, It's no wonder I've never heard of these. It was never spoken, ever. When and where would I ever use this? I wouldn't. Ever. So, why are pronouns important? Right? Because when I say I would never use them, it is easier to just cut to the chase and ask one's name. It's what we do as people. We introduce ourselves and we say our name. What's your name? Hi, I'm Doug. What's your name? Why are pronouns important? It is important to ask for pronouns because you cannot assume how someone identifies their gender based on their appearance. Think about that. Keep that in your mind for a moment. As a society, we commonly assume the gender of others by their appearance and indicate these assumptions by using gendered language such as she, he, ma'am, sir, miss, mister, ladies and gentlemen. This practice results in many individuals, especially trans and gender non-conforming individuals, being misgendered, which may lead to them to feel disrespected, marginalized, and invisible. It is a privilege not to have to worry about which pronoun someone is going to use for you based on how they perceive your gender. If you have this privilege, yet fail to respect someone else's gender identity, it is disrespectful and hurtful. Okay, is it important to ask for pronouns because you cannot assume how someone identifies their gender based on their appearance and how they perceive your gender, me? Does everybody in the LGBTQ plus two look the same? No. Do they dress the same? No. So I'm just somehow supposed to assume that someone is part of the LGBTQ. I'm walking down the street. Here's an example. I'm walking down the street and I'm approaching somebody. How am I to assume their identity, their appearance? This one whole part here doesn't even make any sense. Because it sounds like to me that I am supposed to be able to identify an individual who is part of the LGBTQ. Now, unless they are dressed flamboyantly, makeup on. You've seen pride parades, and you've seen people who dress flamboyantly. And you see others dress like yourself. So this does not make any sense. I think it is just a really poor an example of when you might use gender pronouns. So how can you be inclusive in using and respect your gender pronouns? So respecting someone's self-identification means using the gender pronouns in which they identify. Some people may go by more than one set of pronouns. Now it just gets more confusing. Normalize the process of indicating your gender pronouns in everyday use with strategies such as including them in your email signature, business cards, website profile, name tags, or using them to introduce yourself, you know, um, i.e., my name is Tu, and my pronouns are he and him. What about you? Now, here's another reference they're talking about. You're meeting somebody for the first time. Well, you're out. You're out you're out in the bar. Now, who's to say there's not somebody there from the LGBTQ plus two? Because they can go to any bar they feel like it. Anybody can. You can go to any bar whenever you want. So one way here, if you're not sure, because how can we be sure? Like I said, they don't all dress the same. And and most of them don't go by the gender pronouns. So this would be kind of awkward, I think, So now I have two questions when I'm approaching this individual. So I'm going to walk up to this individual and I'm going to say, I have a question, but then I have another question. I mean, who starts the conversation off with a question? Sometimes we might start off with a question. But in meeting someone, so you would walk up to this individual and say, "Excuse me, I'm just wondering what gender pronouns you use that identify you." That might strike up a great conversation. And it just person is gonna just be like, "What? What are you talking about?" Well, I'm just, I don't want to insult you. I mean, first of all, I wouldn't start a conversation off that way. If I'm going to walk up to somebody, I'm going to introduce myself. And you're either going to tell me to get lost or tell me who you are. And they're going to ask, just the one question. So if you don't know or have not asked someone's pronouns, try to use they, them pronouns. Ask individuals to provide their personal pronouns. That's what I just said. Why would I do that? Do we have to go around now and just have this assumption of people because we're not sure? I don't see it. I just simply just don't see it. How would you like me to refer to you? You can remind me what pronouns I should be using for you. Please note if a student, staff, or community member tells you that they do not want to disclose their pronouns or do not wish their pronouns to be public knowledge, you can refer that person by their name. An example, Leo's book is over there. Can you please hand it to Leo? And first and foremost, people of the LGBTQ plus 2, if I'm pronouncing that properly, in a public setting, you can be damn sure that they are not going to tell you their pronouns they use that identify them. For their own safety. So, where would you do this? Where would you walk up to somebody and say, "Excuse me, could you please tell me what pronoun you use that identifies you?" Where are you going to do that? Certainly not in a public setting. I am not part of the LGBTQ plus 2. I am a heterosexual. I am a male. I like women. Fine. So does everybody else, but no, they don't, because we have different genders. We're not going to ask somebody something like that, unless you're a public speaker and the LGBTQ invited you to speak at one of the events. Then and there you could ask that question, just so that everybody's comfortable. Or if you don't want to ask them that question, what pronouns would you prefer me to use that identify you? You just simply ask them their name. So what's happened here, ladies and gentlemen, is that a small portion of the LGBTQ community and in colleges and universities, teaching facilities, they're accidentally demanding, compelling. The faculty is compelling their professors to use gender pronouns. It is now, ladies and gentlemen, in the Canadian Criminal Code. It is now in the Ontario Human Rights Commission. Not just professors and doctors and you know police officers. I mean, you could get into a lot of trouble. The other thing here is that it has to be proven that you were using it in hate, as a hate crime. Be hard to prove. It doesn't follow on. It doesn't, just because someone doesn't want to use their pronouns and stuff like that, and it is simply outright refuse it. It doesn't even meet that threshold. I don't even know why it's even there. I don't even know why it even was even put in there. I really don't know. To accommodate, potentially. Pronouns, do's and don'ts. Do recognize that most people have pronouns, not just trans people. And that asking pronouns is very important, both so someone's not misgendered and so that trans people are not only the ones will feel the need to share their pronouns. Do remember that some people go by more than one set of pronouns. Do ask people the pronouns they use for themselves whenever you ask people their name, such as when you meet somebody for the first time or when you do go-arounds at meetings. Keep in mind that people may change the pronouns they use by, so it is necessary to ask pronouns in go-arounds. Regular do say the pronouns some uses or their personal pronouns rather than their preferred pronouns. So you're going to do go-arounds in a meeting. It might be uncomfortable for somebody. I would kind of, I guess, if someone just walked up to me out of the blue, doesn't know me from anywhere, and excuse me, what pronouns do you go by so, like, that identify you? I'm not sure how I would take that. I would probably look at you thinking there's something wrong with you. And then it'd be like, why you ask? I mean, how would you react to if someone just out of the blue just walked up to you and asked you that question? Think about that. Do consider using other ways to make language more gender exclusive, such as using "Hey everyone" or "How are you all" in a group setting instead of saying "Hey guys" or "Hey ladies" or "How" or "How's it go?" like or "How." Okay, so I mean, you're going to do a public speech, and you're going to be introduced. You're going to go on stage. Do we have to say, well, thank you, Zeers? We're not going to use ladies and gentlemen. We don't know who's sitting in the audience, and we don't want to offend anybody. God forbid. So, like, we walk up there and just say simply, "Thank you, everyone, for inviting me. Hello, everyone, and thank you. Thank you, and how is everyone doing?" Here are the don'ts. Don't refer to pronouns such as they, them, their, or these gender pronouns are difficult. So, zeer, here, hers, as gender neutral pronouns, while some people identify as gender neutral. Others see themselves as gendered in a non-binary way. Better language is non-binary pronouns. Don't describe the pronouns someone uses as preferred pronouns. It's not a preference. Pronouns that a person uses are their pronouns and the only ones that should be used for them. Don't say male pronouns and female pronouns. Pronouns are not necessarily tied to someone's gender identity. Some trans people use he, him, his, or she, her, and hers. Her. But do not identify as male or female, respectively. And I'm pretty sure it's more than just some. 4.5% of the world's population are part of the LGBTQ plus 2. 4.5%. We have 8 billion people. So I would say that only some go by that. I think a whole lot more do. A whole lot more. Go by him, her, he, she. Now, so this gender identity and gender expression. Gender identity is each person's internal and individual experience of the gender. In the sense of being a woman, a man, or both, or neither, or anywhere along the gender spectrum. So gender expression is how a person publicly presents their gender. This can include behavior and outward experiences such as dress, hair, makeup, body language, and voice. A person's chosen name or pronoun are also common ways of expressing gender. There are a variety of individual experiences of gender and of gender expression, and the terms gender identity and gender expressions include a wide range of gender diversity. Transgender people routinely experience discrimination. Fact. Harassment. Fact. And even violence. Fact. Because their gender identity or expression is different from those typically associated with their sex assigned at birth. A survey conducted by Trans Pulse Project in I can't remember what that year that was, but it was 2015 or so, showed that out of 500 transgender respondents in Ontario, 13% had been fired and 18% were refused employment based on their transgender status. 20% of the respondents had been physically or sexually assaulted. But not all of these assaults were reported to police. So, the Canadian Human Rights Act prohibits discrimination in federally regulated employment and the provisions of goods, services, facilities, and accommodations on the grounds of race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, age, sex, sexual orientation, marital status, family status, disability, and conviction for an offense for which a pardon has been granted or in respect of which these record suspensions have been ordered. So adding gender identity or expression to the list of grounds would make it very clear that transgender and other gender diverse persons have protection in the law. Updates to the criminal code. The criminal code prohibits hate propaganda against an identifiable group. It is currently defined to be a section of the public distinguished by color, race, religion, national or ethnic origin, age, sex, sexual orientation, or mental or physical disability. Adding a gender identity or expression would extend protection against hate propaganda to transgender and other gender diverse persons. And for someone having committed an offense must consider any relevant aggravating circumstances, including if the offense was motivated by bias, prejudice, or hate based on race, national or ethnic origin, language, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, sexual orientation, or any other similar factor. While these phrases are broad enough to include gender identity or expression, an amendment would confirm the protection of transgender and other transgender diverse persons. So, if people refuse outright to use gender pronouns, it doesn't fit hate propaganda. It doesn't even go close to near there. So, in this case of this clinical psychologist, he, like I said, he's not upset with the LGBTQ plus two community. He's upset with the federal government that it was put into the criminal section of the law. He's upset because the place where he used to teach at is compelling him to use gender pronouns. Whether you use them or not, that's entirely up to you. That's your freedom. That's your freedom of expression. You can express that. I'm simply just not going to use gender pronouns. Now, if something, for an example, if you just, for in this case being that he's a clinical psychologist and he was a teacher, of course he practiced. He could be made to pay a monetary penalty, or it might be a non-monetary penalty, or it may include an apology. It could include a non-monetary and an apology, or a monetary penalty and an apology, and the loss of his license to practice. They pointed out a lawyer and himself went before the Canadian government, our lawmakers, and pointed out how poorly this piece of legislation put into the criminal code, how poorly it was written, and using the word accommodate. Why would they use the word accommodate? I guess to please. So, this small group of the LGBTQ plus two would just feel better that it's there. I don't know. I have no idea. I really, really feel that, having, a conversation and, expressing like me, freedom of expression, because I don't, during this hour or so, I never used anything derogatory or hateful or racist towards this topic, and I never would. I'm not like that. right? And I'm not racist. And I wouldn't be racist towards people because of their sexual orientation or whatever the case may be. Color. You know, everybody is human, you know, in my eyes. You know, you are who you are. We choose, or you know, we choose who we want to be. People of the LGBTQ, you know, I don't know how to explain it. They just somehow, you know, feel different. But by me saying that, look, I won't use these gender pronouns, not out of spite, out of um, hate or anything like that. Is just simply because I never learned them. Why would I have learned them? It's never taught in school. I'm not going to be speaking in front of the LGBTQ plus two. I don't know anybody, you know, who is associated in that manner of the LGBTQ plus two. I have no idea. And somehow, me walking down the street, I am somehow supposed to be able to identify you as being part of the LGBTQ plus two. That would be absolutely impossible. Just about impossible. And if I'm walking down the street and I'm looking for an address and a street name and I'm new to the city and I walk up to the person, you know, I'm certainly not going to start the conversation off as like, excuse me, but can you tell me what gender pronoun you use to identify yourself before I ask the question that I approached you to? I'm simply going to say, excuse me, I wonder if you could help me. I'm looking for a street in this address. And I won't be asking, what gender pronoun do you use that identifies you? When I'm just simply going to ask what your name is. We have names. We are given names. Our birth names. It's on our birth certificate. Not out of ignorance. Because how would that be offensive? Is the person going to go, wait a minute? Oh, if I walked up and said, excuse me, sir. I mean, are you going to just stop me right there and say, excuse me? You did not ask me what gender pronoun I use that identifies myself. How well do you think that conversation would go? Imagine that for a moment. when I, it's to me, you know, um, when I, so when I'm on a delivery and, I made that delivery and, the customer hands me back the paperwork, I say, thank you, have a nice day. Or I say, thank you, sir. And I'm thanked back and I leave. Did I did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? Gender pronouns were never taught. And they actually go back to like 1756, somewhere around there. And why would I know anything about gender pronouns anyways? Because I wouldn't. I never I never grew up in the age of the World Wide Web as we know it today. There was no such thing. Growing up, I recognized boy and I recognized girl. Is that wrong? I don't think so. And this small grouping of the LGBTQ plus two, they don't speak on behalf of the entire LGBTQ. And if you know somebody who is part of the LGBTQ plus two, ask them that. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to say, first of all, what are you talking about? Or they'll say, no, it doesn't speak on behalf of me. And I'm guessing there's quite a few that still go by him, her, she, he, miss, mister. So why, I mean, this was on the news. This is a hot topic. Talk about it. Talking about it amongst your friends and in your family. Gender pronouns. Should someone lose their license to practice because they don't want to use the gender pronouns? They feel that they're being compelled by the government and the faculty that they work for, and you're expressing your views and your opinions about it, and you're just absolutely saying no. If we go about this a whole different way, don't compel me to do it. don't have the government compel me to do it, to use gender pronouns. We'll sit down and we'll have this discussion. My freedom of thought, my freedom of expression. We all have it in a democracy. It's not as long as it's not being used in hate. Try telling that to the white supremacists. And how that conversation is going to turn out. This individual and all individuals involved in this, you know, accommodating the government, accommodating by putting this in criminal law, putting it in the criminal section, is ridiculous. We already have the Ontario Human Rights Commission. We have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms when it comes to gender, sex and gender orientation, and so on and so forth. It's already there. And nobody should be able to compel you to use gender pronouns. And I watched this on the news too, um, and I thought to myself, you know, should I bring this up? Should I bring this up in a topic? How am I going to approach this? Then I wasn't going to. But I thought, why not? Isn't part of my show about society issues? If we can't have a discussion, about gender identity and gender expression and whatever, then I would think there's something just simply wrong with society. Is that society would just be old fashioned. It's I certainly, I look, I'm a human being. I have empathy. I can, see where they're coming from. whether it's just a small group of the people of the LGBTQ plus two on their gender expression. And like I said, by me not using gender pronouns, you know, doesn't make me a bad person. Where and when would I use them? I don't associate with the LGBTQ. I'm not a professor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a teacher. Is it just for those professions? In the way, you know, in the way that I'm reading the law? No, the law includes everybody. It includes everybody. Doesn't exclude me because I'm not a professional. I don't have doctor in front of my name. No, the law includes everyone. So could you get into trouble for not using gender pronouns? Well, that's it's kind of hard to explain that one, because if someone of the LGBTQ group, they just, they could say you were using uh, slur reference, as just kept using him, her, or she. But in the criminal part of the law, no. Could you be sued for monetary penalties? I don't even think it even hits that threshold. An apology? Probably. But I'm not going to worry about it. I just thought I would bring it up. I'm not going to go out into the public and start thinking, oh no, this individual is walking towards me and I have to ask a question. What do I do? I'm not going to go out there and start asking everybody I come in contact with, what gender pronoun do you use that identifies you? People might start to think I'm crazy. So you think about that. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's time for me to go because it is 9:30, 9:36. Show's going for an hour and a half. That's pretty good. So thank you everyone for joining me this evening. I am going to be back out here Thursday at 8 p.m. And I need like a day in between, now to um, do some, digging into what I want to talk about and research it a little bit and stuff like that. So that uh, information will be put up sometime tomorrow. So if you are following me on the Truckers Podcast on Podbean and you've clicked the plus side beside it and you get the notification, I think you get a notification when I'm going live or I come on live that the show is, if you're following it, the show is starting. Pretty sure that's how that works. So, today's title was, say this instead of that. So you kind of understand, or you do understand, what I was talking about. So I will see you Thursday night at 9 p.m. And again, thank you everyone for joining me this evening. I'm your host, Doug from Ontario, Canada. Good night, everyone.